Welcome today's session. I welcome to Dr. Sucharita ma'am from today's session. Uh, yes, I don't know. The student has, what problem, I don't know, because students are joining very less number. But still, I mean, today it is the fourth class. So I don't want to take much time. Just straight away, I welcome to ma'am. After his busy schedule, no doubt he's giving time to Indira Gandhi National Open University. We are most thankful to Dr. Sucharita Mishra. So I welcome you, ma'am, and I hand over the session to start our class today, ma'am.
Thank you. Thank you so much, sir. A very good evening to all of you. So let us start our class from Unit 8. It's Unit 8 of BSOC 101. So in Unit 8, I have already discussed some things yesterday related to culture and society. I have discussed the definition of culture, types of culture, also discussed the relationship between culture and society. So today our topic of discussion is the elements of culture. What are the elements of culture? Let us discuss it one by one. So, first element of culture is language because language is the most important and the essence of a culture, which is generally reflected in the language, which facilitates day to day interaction with other people. When we need interaction with other people, we generally need a language, and which is a vehicle of transmission of knowledge. The use of language distinguishes human beings from other species. We generally know that language is the only thing which distinguishes human beings from other species. It is instrumental in the transmission of cultural tradition from one generation to another generation, as it is infused with meaning. That doesn't mean that language does not have any meaning. We need a language which has a meaningful interaction. We need a meaningful interaction when we use some certain types of language. So, for example, in the Arab world in which people depend on camels, there are 3,000 words for camel. Generally, camels use Arab country रे 3,000 words ସେମାନେ use କରନ୍ତି for camels. Similarly, when we describe vegetables like drumstick, bitter gourd, etc. in Indian words, we do not use any adjectives, but the English words reflect the taste and the appearance of these vegetables. So language and culture are intertwined. I mean, language and culture have it is the essence which reflected in the languages which facilitates in our day-to-day interaction with other people. So second one is belief. Second element of culture is belief. Um, According to Abraham, the belief in is a statement or an idea about reality which people accept as true. Belief generally denoted as a statement, or we can say it is an idea about a reality which people accept as true. ଯାହାକୁ ଲୋକମାନେ true ବୋଲି accept କରିଥାନ୍ତି, which is a statement or which is an idea. So, for example, many people in India believe in God, and many auspicious occasions like marriage are scheduled on the basis of auspicious dates. So, even marriages are fixed when the horoscopes of the bride and groom matches. We generally have a belief that when the horoscope matches, then the marriage are fixed. Marriages are fixed in the when the horoscope of the bride and groom are matches. So it is a belief system, but beliefs are not static. We can't say that beliefs are always static. It is not always static and are subject to change over time. Beliefs are generally subject to change over time. ଆମର ଯୋଉ ବିଶ୍ୱାସ ଯୋଉ ଜିନିଷ ଗୁଡା ରହିଛି that is not always static. ଆମେ ଗୋଟେ ବିଶ୍ୱାସରେ ସବୁବେଳେ ପାଇଁ ସ୍ଥିର ହେଇକି ରହୁନାହିଁ। ତାମାନେ ଆମର belief ଟା flexible ହେଇଥାଏ। It depends upon our changes over time. So we may be practicing a certain belief, but by coming in contact with other culture, we may change our belief. So ଆମେ ଆମର belief ଟାକୁ କେତେବେଳେ change କରୁ ଯେତେବେଳେ whenever we have a contact with other other culture. When we will contact with other culture, our belief system may change. So and our belief system may change. So people migrating to
कौन रे
cities,
कटिला कौन रे
some of the superstitious beliefs, but in many other occasions, the beliefs towards something is so strong that we may not able to let it go. एमिति भी किसी कंट्री अच्छी जो कि बिलीफ एते स्ट्रांग जाके ताकू छाड़िबा some patterns of occasions when we celebrate some occasion, some festival, some rituals, that patterns of belief is so strong that we may not be able to let it go. So belief is one pattern or one element of one element of culture. Then second or third one is norm. Third element of culture is norm. Norms are the prescribed rules of society. କାହାକୁ କହିବା ନା it's a prescribed.
मैम
ହଁ sir.
मैम योर माइक इज म्यूट
ନାଇଁ sir ମୋର ତ audible ହଉଛି. ହ୍ୟାଲୋ ହ୍ୟାଲୋ ହ୍ୟାଲୋ
मैम
ହ୍ୟାଲୋ
योर माइक्रोफोन इज म्यूट वेट स्टूडेंट
ହ୍ୟାଲୋ 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 sir, am I audible right now? ହ୍ୟାଲୋ ହ୍ୟାଲୋ
देख लो फोन वाईफाई ऑन ଅଛି रे
learners, am I audible to everyone? Hello,
Yes, ma'am.
I'm audible to you na?
Yes, yes.
Okay, so let us
मैडम योर
start.
माइक्रोफोन इज म्यूट मैम
No sir, kindly say to the sir that I am audible to everyone. Hello, hello,
लर्नर्स जस्ट वेट ना मैडम ଆପଣ ଆପଣଙ୍କର ମାଇକ୍ ଟା म्यूट ହେଇଯାଇଛି ଆପଣ ତ ଏବେ ତ ଆଉ ଆପଣ ତ ମାନେ ଲଗ ଆଉଟ୍ ହେଇଗଲେଣି ଆଉ ଥରେ ଆପଣ ଲଗଇନ୍ କରନ୍ତୁ
hello, hello. Am I audible to
लर्नर्स
everyone?
वेट ना मैम इज जॉइनिंग
Hello,
Hello, ma'am.
am I audible to you?
Yes.
Sir, am I audible? Hello.
Hello. Hello.
Sir, I'll join. Anyway, let's start. So, our next element of culture is we can say norms. Norms are the prescribed rules of society. Norms is what? These are the prescribed rules of society which guides the behavior of the members of society. Norms generally guides the behavior of the members of a society. Norms means that means according to Sutherland that social norms are group developed and group held standards. Social norms hochi kona? Na it is a group developed and group held standards of behavior of the group's members. They direct the conduct of the members of society, or it is the guideline for appropriate behavior. We can say that norms is the guideline for the appropriate behavior, and norms is that which guides the behavior of the members of society. That means we need norms to guide and regulate our behavior. A norm is a specific guide to action which defines acceptable and appropriate behavior in particular situations. For example, in every society, there are norms governing dressing patterns. We know that sabu society ର ଗୋଟେ norms governing dressing patterns ଟା ଥାଏ. ସବୁ society ର ଗୋଟେ dressing patterns ଥାଏ. In particular occasions, we wear some patterns of dressing sense in some certain patterns of occasions. We tend to wear a particular kind of dress. We wear different dresses when we go to a party, a funeral, a office, or even a hospital. ଯେତେବେଳେ ଆମେ norm କହିଲେ ଏଠି ବୁଝୁଛୁ ଯେଉଁଟା କି ଆମର behavior କୁ guide କରିଥାଏ. That means we may take an example of dressing sense. Dressing sense ରେ ଆମେ କୋଉ ଜିନିଷରେ ଦେଖୁଛୁ ନା ଆମେ different patterns of dress ପିନ୍ଧିଥାଉ ଯେତେବେଳେ ଆମେ ଗୋଟେ party attend କରିବା ପାଇଁ ଯାଉଛୁ. We wear different patterns of dress when we attend a funeral, ଗୋଟେ death ceremony ଆମେ ଯଦି attend କରୁଛୁ ତା ପାଇଁ ବି ଆମର ଗୋଟେ pattern of dressing sense ଅଲଗା ଥାଏ. And even if when we go to a hospital. So, but norms vary from society to society. That doesn't mean that that pattern of dress which we wear in Indian society during marriage situations, marriage rituals, or on the occasion of marriage, that is also similar in American society. That means that dressing sense may be different from society to society. So, for example, in a tribal society, wearing a particular dress is acceptable, but in other societies, it is not. Tribal society रे गोटे pattern of dress पिंधिबाटा acceptable, जोटा कि other societies रे acceptable नुहे. एमिति आउ other societies अछि जोटी कि सेटा सेही pattern of dress टा acceptable करा जाय नाही. So norms can be both formal and informal. Norms is of ଆମେ जे देखिबा दीटा patterns अछि, गोटे होछि formal and also informal. So formal norms are written down and attract punishment when violated. Then हमको बुझियो पड़िबो formal norm कोन और informal norm कोन. ना formal norm होची which are written down, जोटा लेखा है कि आसी थाए, and attract punishment when it is violated. जेतेबेले हमें norm को violate करूछु बा norm अनुसारे काम न करी norm रो against रे work करी थाउ, we get punishment, we get punished for that patterns of norms. When we violate a norm, when we ଯେତେବେଳେ ଆମେ ଗୋଟେ norm को violate କରିବା କଣ ଅବମାନନା କରିବା, ଯଦି ଆମେ ସେଟା କୁ ତା ବହିର୍ଭୂତ କିଛି କାମ କରୁଛୁ, then it is then we may get punished. ସେଥିପାଇଁ ଆମକୁ punishment ବି ମିଳିଥାଏ. That is denoted as formal norms. Then what is informal norms? Informal norms are not formally written down. Informal norms ଟା formally ଲେଖା ହେଇକି ନଥାଏ, but are generally accepted. କିନ୍ତୁ ସେ norm ଗୁଡା accepted ହେଇଥାଏ society ରେ. How, what type of informal norms I am talking over here? That formal norms are explicit norms like the explicit rules imposed by schools about uniforms. जदि हमें कहिबा formal norms रो example नबा, you can take the example of college and school uniforms. Uniforms are that pattern of norms which are bound to follow by the every sections of that particular school or particular college. Uniform is a pattern of norm which is accepted as a formal means of norm. ताको हमें formal norms under रे नउछु, काहेकि ना it is denoted as the explicit norms like the explicit rules imposed by schools. So implicit norms कौन? Now it can be some restriction on public display of affection or norms governing dress that we discussed above. जेमते कि हमर किछि norms governing dress patterns उडा रहिछि, जोटा कि म already तमको discuss करिली. So norms are further classified into folkways and mores and laws. Norms को हमें आउ तीन प्रकार रो भी देखुछु, आउ तीन भाग रे भी विभक्त करूछु. That is denoted as your folkways, mores and laws. Then what is folkways? Folkways are the informal rules. Folkways hochi informal rules which guide our actions. Folkways are not the formal rules. These are the informal rules which guide our actions. That means informal means which is not in a written format. बुझी परछो? जोटा कि गोटे written format रे नथिबो, that is denoted as that rules and regulations may not be that much of strict like the formal rules. So for this, folkways are the informal rules which guide our actions. For example, जदि हम गोटे folkways रो example नबा, Do not poke your nose when the elders discuss something. That means ଯେତେବେଳେ ବଡ ମାନେ କଥା ହୁଅନ୍ତି, generally we have that pattern of we follow that pattern of behavior. ଯେତେବେଳେ ବଡ ମାନେ କଥା ହୁଅନ୍ତି ଆମେ କହନ୍ତି ମଝିରେ ନାକ ପୁରାନି, ତୁମେ ତା ଧରେ କଥାବାର୍ତ୍ତା କର ନାହିଁ. That is a pattern of folk ways. That means over your nose when you sneeze etc. ତା ମାନେ ତମେ ଯେ ସେଇ ସମୟରେ ଛିଙ୍କି ଦେଲ କି କିଛି ଗୋଟେ କହୁଛ, that means it is denoted as a folk ways. ତା ମାନେ ଆକୁ ଆମେ କହୁଛୁ ଗୋଟେ ସେଟା କରିବା ଅନୁଚିତ ବୋଲି କୁହାଯାଉଛି. That is denoted as folk ways. Then what is more? Modes are those folkways which are important for the welfare of the group. Modes कौन कोगुड़ा ना modes होची these are those folkways जोटा कि which are important for the welfare of the group. गोटे group रो welfare ପାଇଁ ଆମେ ଯେତେବେଳେ गोटे norm को तैयारी करू, group माने मोर गोटे ग्रुप फॉर्मेशन करी से ग्रुप पाई कि मते किछि नॉर्म्स दरकार, मु किछि रूल्स रखिबी, किछि रेगुलेशंस रहिबो, दैट इज डिनोटेड एज मोड्स. ताको हमें कहूछु कोन मोड्स. So according to Sumner, when the relations of welfare is added to folkways, they are converted to modes. ଯେତେବେଳେ relations को आमे कहूछु कोन, when the relations of welfare is added to folkways, ଯେତେବେଳେ କିଛି ଜନମଙ୍ଗଳକର ହିତକର କାର୍ଯ୍ୟ କରିବା ପାଇଁ, welfare activities କରିବା ପାଇଁ ମୁଁ add କରୁଛି କିଛି folkways ଗୁଡା, ବୁଝି ପାରୁଛ, they are converted to modes. ସେତେବେଳେ ସେଇଟା convert ହେଇଯାଉଛି mode କୁ, ସେଟା ଆଉ folkways ହେଇକି ରହୁ ନାହିଁ. Then what is laws? Laws are what type of norms? Laws grow out of modes. Laws କେତେବେଳେ ଆସୁଛି? Laws grows out of modes and have a rational element in them, or they are formally established rules. So generally we have very clear cut about the fact that laws are formally established rules. जो rule गुड़िक formally करा जाइथिबो, that is included under our laws. So modes are more strictly enforced than folkways, but less strictly enforced than laws. ता माने modes एठी काहा को कहै जिवो, जेते बेले आमे अधिक strictly enforce करूछु folkways को आउ less strictly enforce करूछु law को, then it is denoted as the modes. So this is also the element of culture. Norms are also included as the element of culture. Element means these are the जहाँ को हमें कहिबा उपादान बा base, जहाँ ऊपर culture तैयारी करा जाइछे. And what are the different elements? Culture कहा को नहीं कि सब तार base बनिछि, से जिनसटा ही हमें एठी डिस्कस करूछु. First I have told about belief, then norms, and also included as language. And fourth one is modes. Let us modes already discussed. Then fourth one is values. What is values? Now values are the general guidelines regarding the conduct in society, unlike norms which provide specific conduct. That means according to Abraham, values are the agreements among members of the society as to what is desirable and what is undesirable in a society. That means values होची कोटा society ପାଇଁ ଆବଶ୍ୟକ desirable, कोटा accepted ଆଉ कोटा undesirable or unaccepted. That means it is based upon the societal values. तामाने हमें कहूचो society रो जो जिंस गुडा आबश्यक, को जिंस गुडा आवश्यक नुहे, कोटा प्रेस्क्राइब्ड, कोटा अनप्रेस्क्राइब्ड, बा जहा को कुछ कोटा डिजायरेबल, कोटा अनडिजायरेबल. These are denoted as the values of society. So values are the way people conduct themselves in society. It reflects the orientation of the individuals, groups towards achieving essential goals of society. जेतेबेले हमें societal essential goals fulfillment ପାଇଁ कि चाहूछु, we need the some certain patterns of values. For example, यदि हमें ଗୋଟେ example नबा values रा, paying attention when national anthem is played. ଯେତେବେଳେ ଦେଖୁଥିଲେ, ଯେତେବେଳେ ଗୋଟେ national anthem ତମର ଯୋଉଠି ବି ତମେ ଶୁଣ, you always giving attention to that thing. ତମେ ସବୁବେଳେ attention ଦିଅ, maybe ତମେ ବସିଥିଲେ ଠିଆ ହେଇଯାଅ, ବୁଝି ପାରୁଛ କି ନାହିଁ? So these are certain types of respect ମୁଁ ଦଉଛି ଯେତେବେଳେ whenever I hear the national anthem. So that is also included as a values in your societal values. Even we can take other examples like respecting elders is a value of Indian society. Indian society ଆଉ ଗୋଟେ value କଥା ଯଦି ଆମେ କହିବା ଗୋଟେ example ନବା, we also see respecting our elders is also included as the values of society. So different cultures have different value systems. American value system is different from Indian value system. ଯେମିତି କି ମୁଁ କହିଲି society to society values vary କରୁଛି, ତ Indian value system ଟା ଯାହା ରହିବ American value system ଟା ସେଇଟା ରହିବନି, American value system ବି ଯଦି ଯାହା ରହୁଛି ତାକୁ ଆମେ Russian value system ବି same ଜିନିଷ ରହିବନି, ବୁଝିପାରୁଛ? So these are the values which vary from society to society, and values are those things which are accepted, which are desirable, which are non-desirable. कोटा society ପାଇଁ ଆବଶ୍ୟକ, କୋଟା ଆବଶ୍ୟକ ନୁହେଁ. So these are the basis of values which are also included under your elements of culture. Then last element of culture is sanction. What is sanction? Now, sanction are the penalties and rewards. ଯଦି ଆମେ କହିବା, sanctions are generally denoted as the penalty for social conduct of a person. Sanctions can be both positive and negative. Positive sanctions भी रहिଛି, negative sanctions भी रहिଛି. Conformity to a norm prescribes positive sanction. When we conformed about our norms which prescribes positive sanction, ତାକୁ କହୁଛି positive sanction. ଯଦି जो norm ହିସାବରେ ମୁଁ ସେଇ କାମ ଗୁଡା କରୁଛି, ସେଇ activities ଗୁଡା play କରୁଛି society according to my norms, then this is denoted as your positive sanction. ସେଥିପାଇଁ ଆମ ପାଇଁ କି prescribe କରାଇଛି, like rewards ହେଲା, ପ୍ରେଜ୍ ହେଲା, ଆମେ କିଛି ଭଲ କଲେ ଆମକୁ ଭଲ ରିୱାର୍ଡସ୍ ମିଳେ, societal praise ମିଳେ, ଆମକୁ କିଏ ଭଲ କହନ୍ତି. So these are included our positive sanctions. So on the other hand, ଯଦି ଆମେ negative sanctions, just their opposite ଟା, on the other hand, violation of a norm attracts negative sanctions. ଯେତେବେଳେ ଆମେ norm କୁ violate କରୁଛୁ, rule against କାମ କରୁଛୁ, societal norms against ଯାଇକି କିଛି କାମ କରୁଛୁ, then it is denoted as it attracts the negative sanctions. Negative sanctions कौन? जेमते तम ପାଇଁ fines रहिची, imprisonment रहिची, जेल हे पारे, तम ପାଇଁ किछि traffic rules न मानिले तम ପାଇଁ fines रहिची, helmet न पिंधिले किछि fine रहि. So these are certain examples. If we do not follow certain norms, we have to pay some, we have to denote the negative sanctions. So these are the sanctions which have given priority the cultural values, and we can say in cultural values. So the most cherished values will be the most heavily sanctioned. The less critical matters will have the light sanctions. Is it clear? So sanctions are both in form, that is positive sanctions and negative sanctions. Whenever we do according to our societal values or societal norms, we will have positive sanctions like praise, reward तमको मिलता है. And when we go against our value system of society, we have to we will have negative prescribed as negative sanctions, and that negative sanctions included fines, imprisonment, etc. So my dear learners, these are the things about the elements of culture. So let us have a look on culture and civilization. What is culture? I have already told in my previous class that culture is often denoted as a way of life. आमे जदि कहूछु culture हमर गोटे जीवन धारणर मान बोली आमे ताको कहिथाउ. So here we will discuss on culture and civilization. Culture is often contrasted with civilization. ଯେମିତି କି for Ogburn and Nimcoff ହିସାବରେ civilization is the latter phase of culture. It is highly developed organization or a complex and more evolved form of culture. When the human society develops certain social and political organization, it is called civilization. ता माने एठी civilization काहाकू कहगला ना जेतेबेले when the human society develops certain social and political organization, that is included as civilization. ताकू ही हमें कहिथाउ civilization. Culture is internal. Culture is the inherent qualities of a human being. Internal thing. तम culture टा मते देखा जाउनी. When you show to your activities, तमे जेतेबेले शो करूछ तमर एक्टिविटीज हो रिगार्डिंग आई कैन से some patterns of respect जेतेबेले देखाओ some patterns of behavior जेतेबेले देखौछ I can find out your culture but which is internal qualities of a human being. So culture is internal but civilization is external, as it is the external manifestation or the material aspect of culture, such as the scientific and technological achievements. So, culture is the moral, spiritual, and the intellectual attainment of man. It stands for symbols and values, but civilization is secondary or it is something outside us. I mean, generally kahilu culture is internal and civilization is external, so it is something which is outside us. It is the sum total of the instruments of cultural life. ଯେମିତି କି civilization is the universal development of human beings and society. Culture indicated particularly each person has their own culture. प्रत्येक लोकर culture vary करिबा एका प्रकारर नुहे. Each person to person culture ता vary करूचे. But civilization is a much broader concept as compared to culture, as it is spread beyond boundaries. गोटे boundaries under एटा रुहे नहीं. It is spread beyond the boundaries. Although civilization is a broader concept than culture, but culture is often seen superior to civilization. जदियो civilization गोटे broader concept, किंतु culture सबु बेले superior थाए than civilization. So this is the thing about culture and civilization. So let us have a look what is cultural change. Cultural change कहले हमें कौन बुझुଛୁ? We generally have an idea that culture is dynamic. Last class रे भी कहिछि culture होछि dynamic. It is not static. It is change through time. Over time it changes over time. The elements of cultural change from time to time. In today's society, we see a lot of changes in the culture of society. वर्तमान समाज रे हमें विभिन्न प्रकार परिवर्तन कल्चर रे देखिबा पई पाउछु. There is a change in the eating habits. जदि हमें गोटे छोट एग्जांपल नबा हमर eating habits रे हमें बहुत एबे परिवर्तन देखुछु. ड्रेसिंग पैटर्न रे परिवर्तन देखुछु. टाइप्स ऑफ फैमिली रे डिफरेंट आस जाईची चेंजेस आस जाईची. And also in our education, caste and many changes which are imminent. आउरी भी बहुत उडा परिवर्तन हमें सोसाइटी रे देखिबा पई पाउछु. So cultural changes occur कौन पाई देखा दिए? It is due to innovation. जेतेबेले नुआ ideas, नुआ innovations कथा आसुची सेठी cultural change देखा आसी जाउची. नुआ diffusion माने spread of your culture. So cultural spread हमें जेतेबेले करूछु cultural diffusion basis रे changes आसुची. And acculturation, when we accept other culture, when we acculturate with others, that is also indicated as cultural change. And also assimilation. So cultural changes occur due to innovation, diffusion, acculturation and assimilation. A charita jinsaru cultural change asuchi. So first of all, we will discuss it one by one. What is cultural innovation? Cultural innovation कहले में कौन बुझुछु? My dear learners, innovation is something which is newly created by someone. Innovation होची गोटे एमिति जिंस जोटा कि नुआ करी किछि गोटे तयारी करा जाय. लाइक कहा द्वारा भी गोटे नुआ करी गोटे जिंस होची ताको में कहूछु innovation. It may be a physical object or an artifact or social in terms of rituals, stories, new ideas, new knowledge, etc. So new ideas, new knowledge, new stories, rituals, new rituals. These are the innovative ideas बोले हमें ताको कहिथाउ. For example, the carving of on the temples, the delicate artistic work or the carvings of the white marble of the Taj Mahal, जो Taj Mahal में जो architecture करा जायछि, or the orbiting of satellites are all which are cultural innovations. These are the cultural innovations which we cherish. वर्तमान हमें ताको which we always cherish for these innovative ideas. So innovations also happen when there is a modification or something that exists beforehand. इनोवेशन केते बेले देखा जाउची जेते बेले मॉडिफिकेशन आसुची किछि ओटे नुवा करिवा पई हमें जाउचू. मॉडिफाइड वर्जन जहा एक्जिस्टिंग थिला तार मॉडिफाइड वर्जन हमें किछि सोसाइटी रानिया पई चाहूचू. then it will included under your innovation. So innovation is the most important element of cultural change, as if there is no innovation, there cannot be diffusion, there cannot be acculturation, there cannot be assimilation. बुझिपारल? So जेपर्यंत जदि सोसाइटी नहीं परिबनी सेठी कल्चरल सॉरी acculturation assimilation be possible no. So innovation leads to these things. First ame cultural change ra prathama jinsa ame januchu cultural innovation. Second one is cultural diffusion. Cultural innovation ru diffusion asuchi. Diffusion ta kona? Now, cultural diffusion is a process by which the elements of culture spread from one society to another society. I have already told you that when the elements of culture spread from one society to another society, it is the spread of cultural traits from one group to the other. गोटे group रो आउ गोटे group को पहुंचीबा पाई कि गोटे group रो आउ गोटे group को जेतेबेले आमे हमर traits cultural traits उडा पहुंचो सेटा को हमें कहूछु cultural diffusion. Due to the development in transportation and communication and the movement of people from one place to another without restriction, there is spread of culture in the form of food हे पारे, dress habits हे पारे, lifestyle आसी पारे, education आसी पारे. तो ए सबु जिंस रे जेतेबेले हमें restriction जेतेबेले गोटे प्लेस रो आ गोटे प्लेस को हमें स्प्रेड करूछु without any restriction, that is denoted as a cultural diffusion. That means spread of cultural traits from one group to another group. So cultural diffusion happens at two levels. Dita bhagare cultural diffusion hochi. Gote hochi diffusion of material culture and another one is diffusion of non-material culture. Material culture and non-material culture already mu tamo kahichi. Material culture ame ethi kahaku kahuchu? Now the elements of material culture denoted the object which we can see, use and touch. आमे जहाँ को देखी पारो, छुई पारो, अनुभव करी पारो. That is included as your material culture. In your day-to-day life, you are using your material culture. You are seeing your material culture. You are also feeling your material culture. For example, tomorrow stable chair, tomorrow jaha use karucho mobile phones, all those things, whatever you use in your day-to-day life, that is included under your material culture. Non-material culture, the non-material culture which we can only feel, we cannot see and touch. jaha ko hame dekhi paruno ki kona chui paruno, we can't use it, but we can only feel. That is denoted as a non-material culture. जेमति तमरा प्रथा परंपरा belief सेगुडी का आसुची तमरा non-material culture. So here जेतेबेले cultural diffusion दीटा level ले होची, गोटे diffusion of material culture आ गोटे होची diffusion of non-material culture. According to W.F. Ogburn, the elements of non-material culture are more resistant to change than the material culture. Elements of non-material culture ta बहुत resistant करे change को than the material culture. Non-material culture ta पहले generally जल्दी change हेई परिबा नाही, काहे कि ना गोटे ideas, गोटे belief गोटे राति रे change हेई पारेनी. किंतु गोटे material culture, you may take an example, if गोटे जदि तमर गोटे ड्रेस खराब हे गला, you may purchase another one in one night also. मोबाइल फोन भांगी गले संगे संगे हमें आ गोटे नवा नै आसु तार रिप्लेसमेंट पई. So that means the elements of non-material culture are more resistant to change. Change आनिबा पई दिए नाही, resist करे non-material culture. But in case of material culture, we are very fast in change. So here he refers to the term cultural lag. W.F. Ogburn used the term cultural lag to refer the maladjustment in which non-material culture fails to adjust to the rapidly changing material conditions. जेतेबेले मटेरियल कल्चर टा जल्दी चेंज हो जाउची, नॉन मटेरियल कल्चर पछरे रही जाउची तार, देयर इज फाउंड ए बिग गैप. दैट गैप और लैग माल एडजस्टमेंट दीटा कल्चर भीतर देखा दउची, दैट इज इंक्लूडेड अंडर योर कल्चरल लैग. ताको हमें कहूछु कल्चरल लैग बा जहा को तमे कहूछु सांस्कृतिक विडंबना देखा जाय. So for example, it is difficult to adopt to a Western culture and accept foreign ideas than to accept foreign technology. We accept technology much faster as it makes our lives much easier, but we are unable to change our lives accordingly. In a fast changing society, cultural lag is very prominent as a change in one aspect will bring stress and strength in other parts. There is a time lag before the other parts of the culture catches up and restores the equilibrium of society. So this sometimes disturbs the balance of society and brings anomy. ଯେତେବେଳେ ଏ ଯୋଉ cultural lag ଦେଖା ଯାଉଛି ସେତେବେଳେ anomy concept ବା normlessness society ରେ create ହଉଛି. Anomy is a concept coined by Emile Durkheim which refers to a condition in which normative order of society is broken down. In this situation there may be slight contradiction and confusion or a serious deterioration and disintegration in a society. So that is included as your what cultural diffusion. So let us have a look on acculturation. What is acculturation? A cultural diffusion brings with it the question of cultural contact. When two cultures come into contact, there is some interchange of ideas and culture leading to cultural diffusion. But when the way of life of one culture is in the process of change under the influence of another culture, it is called acculturation. So acculturation कहुची when the way of life of one culture, more a pattern of culture ର गोटे प्रणाली जोटा कि is in the process of change. ଯେତେବେଳେ ପରିବର୍ତ୍ତନ ତା ଭିତରେ ଆସୁଛି କେତେବେଳେ ନା under the influence of another culture. ଯେତେବେଳେ ମୁଁ ଆଉ ଗୋଟେ culture ର contact ରେ ଆସୁଛି ମୋ culture ରେ ଯୋଉ ପରିବର୍ତ୍ତନଟା ଆସୁଛି that change that influence of another culture is called as acculturation. So it may lead to the either or least partial modification of one culture or may result in substantial transformation. In acculturation, the minority culture will retain some of its cultural elements. Next one is assimilation. Assimilation means it is the way in which one way of life is being displaced by another, or it is a process in which a minority group is absorbed into the dominant culture. For example, with the coming of development projects leading to the clearance of forests, there are many tribal cultures which are getting displaced and the tribals are slowly getting assimilated into the society. So this is denoted as your assimilation. So let us have a look on cultural diversity. What is cultural diversity? Now a society is made up of diverse cultures. It can be said that culture of one society is distinct from the culture of other society. गोटे कल्चर गोटे पैटर्न ऑफ कल्चर आउ गोटे पैटर्न ऑफ सोसाइटल कल्चर रो डिफरेंट सो द सोसाइटल कल्चर is a broad culture representing a society, but apart from the societal culture there are different subcultures ଆଉ ସେଠି ବିଭିନ୍ନ ପ୍ରକାର subcultures ଅଛି, counter cultures ଅଛି which occasionally lead to a culture shock. So let us have a look what is subculture. It is a culture within a larger dominant culture. In many complex societies, there are many subcultures. A subculture is a segment of society which shares a distinctive pattern of modes, folkways and values which differ from the pattern of the larger society. So ଏଠି ଆମେ ଦେଖୁଛୁ जे ଯେତେବେଳେ ଗୋଟେ କଲଚର ଭିତରେ ସବ କଲଚର କହୁଛି ଇଟ ଇଜ ଅ କଲଚର ୱିଦିନ ଅ ଲାର୍ଜର ଡୋମିନାଣ୍ଟ କଲଚର ଗୋଟେ ବଡ କଲଚର ଭିତରେ ଯେତେବେଳେ ଆମେ ଛୋଟ ଛୋଟ କଲଚର ଗୁଡାର ଏମର୍ଜେନ୍ସ ହଉଛି ବା ଯଦି ଆମେ କହିବା ଇନ ମେନି କମ୍ପ୍ଲେକ୍ସ ସୋସାଇଟିଜ ଦେୟାର ଆର ମେନି ସବ କଲଚର subculture ହଉଛି ଗୋଟେ segment of society which shares a distinctive pattern of modes ତାଙ୍କର pattern of modes ଅଲଗା folkways ଅଲଗା values ବି ଅଲଗା which differ from the pattern of the larger societal pattern tharu eta kichi different that is denoted as your subculture. Then what is counter culture? Now though there are different subcultures in a society, these subcultures of a particular group are always not compatible with the dominant culture. Subculture ta sabubale compatible rahi na thae dominant culture sahita. So some subcultures challenge the prevailing culture and contrast the prevailing culture. କିଛି subculture challenge करे ଆଉ contrast करे prevailing culture को, ताकू कहा जाउची counter culture. For example, a group of dacoits who have their own norms and standards which differ from the conventional prevailing pattern. So the counter cultures are very popular among the youth who generally find it difficult to cope up with the dominant culture, which is shared by the older generation. Just like older generation और younger generations ଭିତରେ जो cultural gap जदि हम कहबा, older generation कर ideas values टा younger generation माने जेतेबेले follow करि पारंती बा counter करंती ताकू contrast तांको against कहा जाए तो ताकू हमें generally कहूछु counter culture. Counter माने contrast करिबा culture को, so that is called the counter culture. Then coming under your culture shock कौन? When people come across unfamiliar culture, जेतेबेले हमें unfamiliar culture हे जाऊ, culture रे familiar हबा और unfamiliar हबा ता different thing. So unfamiliar culture and are unable to cope up with it, they suffer maladjustment. जेतेबेले मो culture सहित cope करि पारुनी, cooperation करि पारुनी and are unable to and I become unfamiliar with that particular culture, that so I suffer from maladjustment. In this situation, they face a cultural shock. As our society has many subcultures, we may not be aware of all of them. आमे सबु जानक जिनस रे aware नुहे. And when we confront the way of living of some other culture, we get disoriented. For example, when we go to a foreign country, we may come across a particular way of life which is different from ours. Obviously, जेतेबेले हम गोटे foreign countries को जाउछु, हमर culture थारु तांकर culture किछ different and सेई culture रे हमें acquaint करबा पई सेति maladjustment create होउची, cultural maladjustment, which is denoted as cultural shock, जाको हम कहउछु cultural shock. So let us have a look on what is ethnocentrism. The term ethnocentrism was coined by William Graham Sumner to refer to the feeling that one's culture is always superior to others' culture. जेतेबेले मो culture टाको सबुबेले superior भाबुची in comparison to other culture, when someone is feeling that their own culture is superior to others, that feeling is denoted as ethnocentrism. According to Sumner, ethnocentrism is the technical name of this view of things in which one's own group is the center of everything. Mo nijo group, nijo culture, sabu bele mor center of attraction, and all others are scaled and rated with reference to it. He further says that it leads people to exaggerate everything in their focus, which differentiate them from others. On the basis of this feeling, other cultures are judged in relation to one's own culture. So ethnocentrism gives rise to a feeling of superiority in the sense that we judge other cultures as wrong rather than just the other and the other way. Ethnocentrism sometimes may lead to fear of the foreign. जहाँको मैं कहूँ schizophrenia, जहाँको fear of foreign बोली कुहा जाता है. It sometimes may lead to schizophrenia. So this is denoted under ethnocentrism. So let us have a look what is cultural relativism. Cultural relativism कहले हमें कौन बुझुछु? It is a process in which we evaluate a culture by its own standards or in its own context rather than from our own cultural lens. जेमती कि आमे जेतेबेले गोटे कल्चर को इवैल्यूएट करूछु बाय इट्स ओन स्टैंडर्ड, कल्चरल स्टैंडर्ड को देखिके और इन इट्स ओन कॉन्टेक्स्ट, सेही कल्चर कॉन्टेक्स्ट को देखिके रादर देन फ्रॉम आवर ओन कल्चरल, निजरा कल्चरल पर्सपेक्टिव को छाडी कि आमे त कल्चरल पर्सपेक्टिव रो ताको देखुछु, कल्चर पर्सपेक्टिव रो, देन इट इज डिनोटेड एज कल्चरल रिलेटिविज्म. Abraham says that every culture elements of culture has a function unique to the group which shares a culture. Many customs and practices in a culture should not be judged as right or wrong, good or bad, but are to be understood in terms of their function. Many Americans wonder why Indian farmers refuse to eat their cows even if they starve. So cultural relativism may lead to pseudo-centrism, which is the opposite of ethnocentrism. So it is a belief that other cultures is superior to one's own culture. That is called cultural relativism. Then coming to multiculturalism kona? Now, in order to understand what a multicultural society is, we have to understand what an ethnic group is. Ethnic group kona taku janile hi ame multicultural kona janiba. In today's societies, there is the existence of multiple ethnic groups. Ethnic groups is a community of people who share a common cultural background, or they share certain common characteristics such as race, language, religion, etc., which differentiates them from other groups. So it defines multiculturalism as a legal and political accommodation of ethnic diversity. Multiculturalism emerged in the West as an attempt of replacing the older forms of ethnic and racial hierarchy with the ideals of democratic citizenship. So multiculturalism in recent times has become a highly debated concept, with people questioning whether a multicultural society is possible or not. So it is a debatable concept, multiculturalism. Then coming to globalization and culture. Globalization and culture kona? Globalization is associated with integration of the world. Globalization associated with integration of the world, with the markets breaking open the barriers across nation states in terms of flows of trade, finance, technology, knowledge, culture, and even the movements of people. That means free flow of ideas, free flow of everything. That is denoted as globalization. An improvement in transportation and communication and a global contact between the cultures led to the transmission of values, ideas, meanings, and even movement of people around the world. The phenomena of globalization has brought in significant changes in the economy, politics, culture, etc. of the world. ताମାନେ सबुथिरे हमें किछि कौन चेंज देखिबा पई पाउछु with the spread of globalization, global concept ru जदि हमें देखिबा. So what is cultural diversity in India? Maybe Indian context to take janiba cultural diversity ta kono. Now the Indian society is very diverse and extremely complex. Amara society ta nihati bhavare complex jehetu ame ethi ବିଭିନ୍ନ ପ୍ରକାର race, ବିଭିନ୍ନ cultural backgrounds, ବିଭିନ୍ନ religious groups ଅଛନ୍ତି. So the Indian society had covered a span of 5,000 years since the period of its first known civilization. During this long period, several waves of immigrants representing different ethnic strengths and linguistic families have merged into its population to contribute to its diversity, richness, and vitality. So the Indian society consists of a large number of language, जोटा मु कहली बहुत भाषा भाषी रे लोक अछंदी, beliefs system अधिक विभिन्न प्रकार belief रे लोक माने अछंदी, विभिन्न rituals, customs, traditions, etc. It has 22 national languages and 100 dialects. ଆମେ जे देखिबा 22 टा national language हमर अछि आ 100 patterns of dialects हमर अछि. So it is one of the most religiously and ethnically diverse nations of the world. So there are even many languages which are till now not even recognized. एमिति भी केते languages আছে বর্তমান পর্যন্ত সেটা recognized হেই পারি নাই. So religious faiths include Hinduism, Islam, Christianity, Sikhism, Buddhism, Jainism, Zoroastrianism, and even the faith which is practiced by the smaller number of communities, with the Hindus constituting a majority. So एठी हमें विभिन्न प्रकारर लोकमानकु विभिन्न ग्रुपर लोकमानकु हमें देखुछु. So moreover, the Indian society is also a home to a number of tribal communities who have their distinct cultural identity and heritage. These diversities can be attributed to the existence of different cultural traditions like classical traditions, folk traditions, tribal traditions. So in other words, these traditions can be divided into little tradition and great tradition. Little tradition or great tradition concept given by Robert Redfield. The literal traditions are generally unwritten and are transmitted orally. Orally जो जिनसे उड़ा transmit होची ताको मैं कहूँ literal tradition which is not in a written format. On the other hand, great traditions are written traditions and are found in literature and religious text. Religious text रे जो जिनसे उड़ा तमर लिखा है जी बा written है अच्छी जो form रे traditions टा तो ताको मैं कहूँ कौन great tradition. Though in the present context there has been much overlap between the traditions and there has been an interaction between the two traditions. So these tradition between our interactions we have rahichi Indian society. So let us have a look cultural unity and integration. In spite of these diversities, jadio India re ete diversities rahichi, the Indian society is characterized by unity, and this unity in diversity has become a part of India's self identity according to S.C. Dubey. S.C. Dubey का हिसाब रे India's self identity unity in diversity has become a part of India's self identity. India is a secular state and has a constitution which ensures that the identities of different communities are preserved. Moreover, the different facets of culture like religion, music, art and architecture, painting, dance and drama, habits and customs have contributed to the unity and integration of India. So Dubey says that there are problems persist and many also have spawned in recent decades like ethnic movements, religious fundamentalism, linguistic conflicts, regionalism, which pose a major challenge to the contemporary Indian society. The Indian society has witnessed a lot of invasions, moreover liberalization, privatization and globalization also has ushered in a lot of changes. But these have not led to the disintegration of the Indian society. It can be said that despite a lot of diversity, protests there is an underlying unity derived from its unique culture, which is the cornerstone of Indian society. So, my dear students, this unit has almost covered. So, culture and society, or we can say culture and society are closely interrelated. Society is a broad concept and culture is a part of it. So, society refers to the persons and groups and culture refers to the behavioral patterns. So, culture refers to the thoughts, beliefs, attitudes and all that characteristics of man as a social being. The social being haba pai culture ra avashyakata kete matra rahichi and we learn so many things from this unit. So let us have our next unit. If you have any doubts relating to this culture, you can ask. କାହାର କିଛି doubt ଅଛି? Culture ଯୋଉଟା ପଢେଇଲି ମୁଁ ବର୍ତ୍ତମାନ ଯେ ତମର ଆ ଭିତରେ କିଛି doubt ଅଛି, you can ask question.
Ma'am, multiculturalism. One second, please.
अच्छा, multiculturalism.
Yes, ma'am.
मल्टीकल्चरलिज्म जिनसे आमे माने कहले आमे कोन बुझुछु मल्टीकल्चर कहले आमे कल्चर तो आमे जानुछु वेरियस आमे जानलु जेमति कि तमरा आर्ट हैला आर्किटेक्चर हैला नॉलेज हैला बिलीफ हैला सब जंक जिनसे आमे कल्चर अंडर रे नउछु सो मल्टीकल्चर कहले कोन बुझुछु जते बेले सिंगल रु आमे डबल ट्रिपल माने वेरियस डिफरेंट अधिका अधिका जते बेले आगु को जाउछु ताको मे कहूछु multiculturalism. Multiculture itself shows that ଆମେ ଯେତେବେଳେ ଗୋଟେ ଜିନିଷର କଣ spread ମାନେ in order to understand what a multicultural society is, we have to understand what a ethnic group. ତାମାନେ ଆମେ different ethnic groups ରୁ ହିଁ find out କରୁଛୁ cultures, different culture. Ethnic group କାହାକୁ କୁହାଯାଉଛି ନା ethnic group ହଉଛି ଗୋଟେ community of people who share a common cultural background. ଗୋଟେ common cultural background ସେମାନେ share କରୁଥିବେ or they share certain common characteristics such as race. तमे race ଯେତେବେଳେ ଜାଣିବ common cultural characteristics एका प्रकार language ହେଇଥିବ एका प्रकार race ହେଇଥିବ एका प्रकार religion ହେଇଥିବ କିନ୍ତୁ ତା ଭିତରେ culture different ଥିବ ବୁଝିପାରୁଛ ଯଦିଓ ଆମର language ଓଡିଆ ଏକା ପ୍ରକାର but culture ବି ସମସ୍ତଙ୍କର ଏକା ପ୍ରକାରର ଆଇଡିଓଲୋଜି ନୁହେଁ ଏକା ପ୍ରକାରର ଅକେଜନ ଫେଷ୍ଟିଭାଲ ସେଲିବ୍ରେସନ କରିବା ଡିଫରେଣ୍ଟ ରହୁଛି ସୋ ଏଠି କୁହାଯାଉଛି ଯେତେବେଳେ which differentiates them from other groups ଆମର language ଟା ଗୋଟେ language କୁ different show କରୁଛି so ଆମେ ଏଠି generally it is a principle of coexistence of different cultures which fosters understanding and appreciation of different culture ଯେତେବେଳେ different culture ର understanding ଟା ଆମେ ଜାଣୁଛୁ different culture different opinions different various rituals various traditions को according to our ethnic group ethnic background को ନେଇକି follow କରୁଛୁ then it is called as a multiculturalism concept a multicultural society is often equated with the salad ball କହିଲେ କଣ ବୁଝୁଛ ସାଲାଡ ଯେତେବେଳେ ତମେ କର ଗୋଟେ ସାଲାଡ ଯେତେବେଳେ କରୁଛ ତା ଦେହରେ ବିଭିନ୍ନ ପ୍ରକାର ଜିନିଷ ଇନଗ୍ରେଡିଏଣ୍ଟସ ଦରକାର ହଉଛି ସାଲାଡ ଟା ଗୋଟେ ଜିନିଷକୁ ମିଶେଇକି ହଉନି ବୁଝିପାରୁଛ ତ ମଲ୍ଟି କଲଚର ଇଟସେଲ୍ଫ ଡୁଇଂ ଦ ସେମ୍ ଥିଙ୍ଗ ଯେତେବେଳେ ଆମେ ବିଭିନ୍ନ ପ୍ରକାରର କଲଚରାଲ ଗ୍ରୁପ୍ସ ରୁ ମିଶେଇ ମିଶେଇ କିଛି ଜିନିଷଟା ଫାଇଣ୍ଡ ଆଉଟ୍ କରୁଛୁ ଦ୍ୟାଟ ଇଜ କଲ୍ଡ ମଲ୍ଟିକଲଚରାଲିଜମ ଯେମିତି ତମେ ସାଲାଡ ବଲ ରେ ଦେଖୁଛ କଣ ସାଲାଡ ରେ ବିଭିନ୍ନ ଇନଗ୍ରେଡିଏଣ୍ଟସ ରହିଛି ଇନ ଦ ସିମିଲାର ୱେ in which all communities retain their distinct identities as opposed to a melting pot in which the majority culture follows of a minority culture so eti gote jinso hochi majority culture ta follows karuchi the of a minority culture so multiculturalism is different type of a highly debated concept people questioning whether the multicultural society is possible ତା ମାନେ ଆମେ ଯଦି ଏବେ ବି ଏଇଟା ଗୋଟେ ଡିବେଟେବୁଲ କନସେପ୍ଟ ହେଇକି ରହିଛି ଯେ ଆମେ ମଲ୍ଟିକଲଚରାଲ ସୋସାଇଟି ରେ ଏବେ ମାନେ ପସିବୁଲ ହେଇପାରିବ କି ନାହିଁ ରହିପାରିବେ କି ନାହିଁ ବୁଝିପାରୁଛ ନା ନାହିଁ ସବୁ ସୋସାଇଟିରେ ଆମର ଇଣ୍ଡିଆରେ ସିନା ଆମେ ମଲ୍ଟିକଲଚରାଲିଜମ ଟା ଅଧିକ ମାତ୍ରାରେ ଦେଖୁଛୁ ଆମେରିକାନ ସୋସାଇଟିରେ ଏଇଟା ନାହିଁ ଏକା ପ୍ରକାର ତାଙ୍କର ସବୁ ରହିଥିବ କିନ୍ତୁ ଆମ ଇଣ୍ଡିଆ ଟା କଣ ସାଲାଡ ବଲ ଭଳିଆ ସବୁ ଯାକ ଜିନିଷ ଏଠି ଆମେ ଦେଖିବା ପାଇଁ ପାଉଛୁ ସବୁ ethnic background ସବୁ linguistic group ସବୁ religious groups ବୁଝିପାରୁଛ so this is denoted as your multiculturalism is it clear
Yes, ma'am.
okay ଆଉ କାହାର କିଛି ତାହେଲେ ଆମେ ଏବେ ଆଉ ଗୋଟେ କନସେପ୍ଟ ଆଉ ଗୋଟେ ୟୁନିଟ କୁ ଯିବା ତମର ୟୁନିଟ 9 यूनिट 9 denoted as social groups and community culture सरला परे हमें एथे फोकस करबा social groups and community in between social groups and community we will have definitions of community characteristics of community elements of community sentiment community and association then classification of groups as well as social group and community difference हमें एते की जिंस एठी प्रथमे हमें डिस्कस करबा So let us have the introduction part. Wherever the members of any group, small or large, live together in such a way that they share not this or that interest, but the basic condition of a common life, we call that group of community. So community is essentially an area of social living. Community कौन जदि हमें बुझिबा? It is an area of social living. It is marked by some degree of social coherence. Thus, community is a circle of interwoven relationship within the ranges of a community. The members may carry on their economic, political, religious, educational and other activities. Members माने community रो ए सबु जंक जिनिस को कैरी करिथान गोटे community रे हमें ए सबु जिनिस कैरी करिथबार देखिबा पाउछु economical activities achi political activities achi religious achi educational achi and so many other activities hence community is the total organization of social life within a defined social space ताहले एठी community रो example कोन होबो first हमें समस्त belong करू that is village community we can say village community tribal community city is also included as a community and also district we can say it is a community so community jinsa hame janla pare it is have what is the meaning of group means a collection of human beings who have social relationship with one another group कहले हमें कोन बुझुछु it is a collection of human beings not a single human being गोटे लोक को नै कि ग्रुप करा जाय ना ग्रुप होछु गोटे collection of human beings who have social relationship with one another ସମସ୍ତଙ୍କ ସହିତ social relationship ଟା थिबो social relationship कोन ना it is a some degree of reciprocity as well as awareness of mutuality ସମସ୍ତଙ୍କର ପରସ୍ପର ପ୍ରତି mutual awareness ଥିବ, we feeling ଥିବ, and it has a some degree of reciprocity feelings ବି ଥିବ. On the basis of this criteria, such many of those divisions of a population that are sometimes named social groups or may not be do so. तामाने एई भलिया क्राइटेरिया को नै किछि गोटे ए को हमें सोशल ग्रुप भी कहिता आ समटाइम्स इट मे नॉट बी डू सो तामाने आकु आउ किछि टाइम रे कहि भी न थाओ. For general understanding, we regard any collection of two or more individuals to be a group. Dita ba dita ru adhika loko hele it constitute a group whose members identify and interact with each other in a personalized manner. Members manankar interaction very personal interaction ta heithiba. The small size of some groups enables all the members to know and to interact with the help of shared values and norms. Jete small members rahibe group re sete interaction ta personal hei paribo au shared values au norms ta easier hei paribo. As a result of the members of a group feel strong interpersonal bonds among themselves and with the group as a whole. There are countless kinds of groups in contemporary society. Recent society jodi hame dekhiba, nowadays we have countless patterns of groups. Countless patterns of groups mane we can include families, friendship groups, uh, work groups, teenage gangs, sport teams, juries, rap groups and committees and all of this and like this. तामाने हमें ए भलिया केते प्रकार रो ग्रुप एबे contemporary society रे देखिबा पई पाउछु. All of us are members of numerous social groups that influences and shape many of our daily activities. एठी क्वेश्चन आछुची ग्रुप रो फॉर्मेशन होबा कोन दरकार ना. ग्रुप can only influence and shape many of our daily activities. Group are essential to shape our daily activities. हमर डे टू डे एक्टिविटीज को shape करिबा पई ग्रुप रो shape माने परिमार्जित करिबा पई ग्रुप रो एक्टिविटीज ता निहाती भाबरे रहिछि. ग्रुप रो एसेंशियलिटी ता रहिछि. जेमति कि द फैमिली इज एन इंपोर्टेंट ग्रुप. परिवार को हमें प्रथम गोटे प्रमुख समूह बोली कहिथाउ इन मोस्ट ऑफ आवर लाइफ्स. Since bonds of love and affection, commitments, family ଭିତରେ ଏତେ ଜିନିଷ ଆମେ ଦେଖିବା ପାଇଁ ପାଉଛୁ. Marriage and kinship links which closely within the family. Even if we do not live with all the members of our family, ଯଦି ଆମେ ସମସ୍ତଙ୍କ ସାଙ୍ଗରେ ଏକାଠି ବର୍ତ୍ତମାନ ରହି ନ ପାରୁଛୁ or interact with them on daily basis, ସବୁଦିନ interact ବି କରିପାରୁନୁ, but we commonly maintain these interpersonal ties through letters, phone calls and visits. So categorizing groups as either primary or secondary is a convenient way of indicating the depth and inclusiveness of social relationships. So let us have a definition of community. Community definition according to Bogardus, community is a social group with some degree of we feeling and living in a given area. Community होची गोटे social group with a some degree of we feeling माने आमो भावना थिबो परस्पर भितर and living in a particular area, given area, that is denoted as community. According to K. Davis, community is the smallest territorial group that can embrace all aspects of social life. सामाजिक जीवन शैली रो सबु जंक aspect आमे गोटे community भितर ही देखिबा पई पाइथाउ. Let us have what are the characteristics of community. Characteristics रे प्रथम characteristics आसुची definite territory जाको कहली गोटे given area भितर confined हेतिबो. Population, community रे केते population सेटा भी गोटे confined करा जायतिबो. Close social relationship थिबो. Cultural similarity thibo, we feeling thibo, and also organized interaction. In a community, we always have an organized interaction. So let us have what are the great and little communities. Great communities kona or little communities kona. In spite of this expansion of the community to the dimensions of the nation and world, the smaller communities still remain as viable units. The nation or world state does not eliminate the village or neighborhood. Nation jadio gote big community ko ame great bada boli kohuchu, but it cannot eliminate we cannot eliminate the village community or neighborhood, though they may be changed in character. As social beings, we need smaller as well as the larger circle of community. आमे स्मॉल कम्युनिटी भी आवश्यक करूछु, लार्जर सर्कल ऑफ कम्युनिटी आल्सो we needed. So the great community brings us opportunity, stability, economy, and constant stimulus of a richer, more varied culture. But living in a smaller community, we find the nearer, more intimate satisfaction. Smaller community रे गोटे जिनस हमको मिले, we can intimate, more intimate है पारु, personalized अधिक है पारु, and we become very nearer to our groups. But in case of great community, it brings us opportunity, stability, economy, and constant stimulus of a richer and more varied culture. So the larger community provides peace and protection, patriotism, and sometimes war, automobiles, and the radio. The smaller communities provide friends and friendships, gossip, and face-to-face rivalry, local pride, and abode. Both are essential to the full life process. Amar jodi purna life process ame dekhiba, we need both the communities, larger as well as smaller communities. So what are the base of community? Community ର base कौन? ताहाको नेकी तैयारी करा जायछि. So एठी हमें देखुछु दीटा जिंस को हमें फोकस करिबा. गोटे होछि locality आ गोटे होछि community sentiment. Then what does the locality means? Now a community always occupies a geographical area. गोटे निर्दिष्ट एरिया को confined करके community करा जायछि. So locality is the physical basis of a community. Locality होछि गोटे physical basis of a community. Even a nomad community is a band of chiefs, for example, has a local, though changing habitations. At every moment, its members occupy together a definite place on the earth's surface. तामाने गोटिए living together facilitate करिଥାଏ लोक मानको ना to develop the social contacts, gives protection, safety and security. ए सबु पई हमें गोटे definite locality चाहिए to give a base to the community. Then coming to your community sentiment, people occupying special local areas which lack the social coherence necessarily to give them a community character in today's world. That is, for example, the residents of a ward or district or a large city may lack sufficient contacts or common interests to instill conscious identification with the area. Community sentiment bile dekho je tame koiba gote neighborhood sentiment. Neighborhood, such a neighborhood is not a community because it does not possess a feeling of belonging together. It lacks community sentiment. So locality, though necessary condition, is not enough to create a community. The community is undoubtedly a common living. खाली गोटे locality हे गले हबनी कि गोटे neighborhood हे गले हमें community कर. We need a community sentiment, we feeling of belonging together, एकाठी रहिबार गोटे feeling रहिबा समस्तଙ୍କ भितरे दरकार. The members develop a sense of we feeling. It means a kind of identification with the group. Without the sense of identification, a sense of awareness, a sense of living and sharing the common interest of life, there cannot be any community. Jodi ei sabu jinsa na rahibo, we can't think of a community. Then what are the elements of community sentiment? Community sentiment ro element guda kona? Now we feeling achi amo vitare, we feeling ame generally januchu amo bhavana. This feeling that leads to the identify themselves with others. That means we always conceptualize ourselves as we. That means we sentiment. We sentiment amara village community vitare kono gote hela, that is the concept of we coming here, not I. So it is revealed that nowhere more clearly than where the interest is the territorial community. The community vitare the basic element rahibo we feeling. Second aschi role feeling. Role feeling kona? Now this feeling involving subordination to the whole on the part of the individual is fostered by training and habituation in the daily disciplines of life, so that each person feels he or she a role to play his own function to fulfill the role feeling or reciprocal exchanges of social scene. तो एथे में role feeling टा भी देखिया पाई था community भितरे. And also dependency feeling. Dependency feeling means this refers to the individual case of dependence upon the community as a necessary condition of his or of his own life. गोटे आमे community उपरे प्रायत dependency जो जो जिनसटा भी आमे देखिबा पई पाइथा. This involves both a physical dependency होई पारे, since his or her material wants to satisfy, psychological dependency होई पारे. So community is the greater home that sustains the individual, embodying all that it is the at least familiar, if not wholly congenial to his life. So the community is a refuge from the solitude and fears that accompany that individual isolation. So characteristics of our modern life. So these are the elements of jota kahilu elements of community sentiment. Eguda rohuchi community sentiment elements. So let us have a look what community has been defined in a just a summarized way. Community generally a grouping of people within a geographical area with a division of labor into specialized and interdependent functions with a common culture and a social system which organizes their activities, whose members are conscious of their unity and belonging to the community, whose members can act collectively in an organized manner. So this is all about your community, what a community is. So let us have a look what is community and association. One of the most important division of social groups is an association. What is association? An association is a group of people united for a specific purpose. But a group of people ଯେତେବେଳେ unite ହେଇଥାନ୍ତି ଗୋଟେ specific purpose ପାଇଁ or a limited number of purposes. ତାଙ୍କର କିଛି limited number of purposes ପାଇଁ ଗୋଟେ specific purpose ପାଇଁ ଯେତେବେଳେ group of people unite ହେଇଥାନ୍ତି ତାକୁ ଆମେ କହୁଛୁ association. Like such in an army or a school or the subject of which is to defend the nation or to impart the knowledge. So the community it is a permanent social group embracing a totality of end of purpose. In contrast to the association, the life of the members of a community is wholly lived in it. Here they find all their social relations, while outside it there is little but they need. So the task of deciding whether a group is a community or an association is not always easy. Gote group ta gote community na gote association eta janibata gote easy jinsa nohe. The greater the plurality of ends of an association, the nearer is the approaches the concept of community is. Though that may never be reached. Thus, in India, the so-called communities which gave rise to the problem of communalism are not communities in the sociological sense. So they are rather ethnical groups within which certain social and religious interests are satisfied. But owing to the dependence of these groups on the one another and on the larger provincial or national unit, they cannot fulfill the definition of a community. So एठी हमें community और association रो जो जिनसटा जानूछु एठी हमें जानलु कोन association टा बिल्ड अप करा जाउची गोटे स्पेसिफिक पर्पस फुलफिलमेंट करबा पई जेतेबेले गोटे ग्रुप ऑफ मेंबर्स ग्रुप तयारी करथांती ताको हमें कहूछु association. You can take the association of labor association, teachers association, doctors association. गोटे स्पेसिफिक इंटरेस्ट प्रत्येक ग्रुप रे गोटे स्पेसिफिक इंटरेस्ट रहिछि समस्तनकर इक्वल इंटरेस्ट नाही किंतु कम्युनिटी रे हमें कोन देखुछु देयर इज वी फीलिंग कॉमन सेंटिमेंट कॉमन टेरिटरी group of people बुझोछि तो common cultural patterns, so this is included under community. So let us have a look what is social group. Social group कहूछि a group as any number of people larger or smaller between whom such relations are discovered that they must be thought of together. Tamane it is generally a group is an aggregate of individuals which persists in time, which has one or more interest and activities in common and which is generally organized. ताको हमें group बोली कहता हूँ. Social group is given aggregate of people playing interrelated roles and recognized by themselves or others as a unit of interaction. So what are the basis of classification of groups? Classification of groups रो base गुडा कोन रहिबो ना हमें एठे देखिबा जे generally Sociology considers human groups its primary unit of analysis. If asked to describe the base on which social group exists, different answers may exist of different kinds of groups. So now group is a various patterns ଆଉ ସେ patterns ର different opinion of groups ଗୁଡା ରହିଛି ତା ମାନେ ସବୁର ଏକା ପ୍ରକାରର typology ବା ଏକା ପ୍ରକାରର definition ଏଠି ନାହିଁ. So there are several criteria by which social groups may be classified. Thus, while some sociologists give a simple basis for classifying groups, others have given the elaborate classificatory scheme. So, first, we will देखिबा classification of groups by different sociologists. So, first, Sanderson. As according to Sanderson, classifies groups into three types: involuntary groups, voluntary groups, and delegate groups. Then coming to C.H. Cooley classifies groups into two types on the basis of contract. He named it two types, what is a primary group and another one is secondary group. Then coming to the F.H. Giddings classifies groups into genetic group and congregate group on the basis of relationship. W.G. Sumner makes a distinction between the in-group and out-group on the basis of consciousness of kind. George Hassan classifies groups on the basis of their relations to other groups into unsocial, pseudo-social, and pro-social. Or Miller divides social groups into horizontal and vertical groups. But here we will let us discuss on primary and secondary groups. Primary group kona or secondary group kona. Primary group was coined by C.H. Cooley in 1909 in his famous book Social Organization. A primary group is relatively small. Members of this group generally have face-to-face interactions. They have intimate and cooperative relationship as well as strong loyalty. The relationship between the members are ends in themselves because members derive pleasure and enjoyment merely by associating with one another. They have no other end or goals in view. The primary group comes to an end when one or more members leave it. They cannot be substituted by others. The best example of a primary group is the family and the friendship or the peer group. तामाने प्राइमरी ग्रुप रे हमें कौन जानछु फेस टू फेस इंटरेक्शन पर्सनल रिलेशनशिप इंटीमेट रिलेशनशिप physical proximity. It denotes to primary group and the best example of primary group is our family. Then coming to secondary group groups in several respects are the opposite of primary group as they are in general large groups. Generally, like primary groups, secondary groups are not small in size, it is large in size. Members of the secondary groups maintain relatively limited formal and impersonal relationships with one another. Secondary groups are specific or specialized interest groups. It generally has a well-defined division of labor. Secondary groups may continue irrespective of whether it is original members continue or to be the members or not. So a football team, a music club, a factory, an army, etc. are the examples of secondary group. So let us have a look on difference between primary group and secondary group. What are the difference, major difference? First difference is the size of the group. Primary group is small and secondary group is large. Second one is personal intimate relationship found to be seen in primary group, but in secondary group there is found impersonal relationship. In third difference, there is much face-to-face communication among the members of a primary group, while the secondary group, the members have little face-to-face communication. In fourth one, members have a strong sense of loyalty or we-feeling in primary group, but in case of secondary group, it cannot be possible. So next one, informality is most common in primary group. The group usually does not have a name, officers or irregular meeting place, but in secondary group, such formality देखा जाए, ये formality टा था secondary group. Primary group are relationship oriented, but secondary groups are goal oriented. Primary group, the relations are inclusive. That is why the absence of one group cannot be fulfilled by another. Inclusiveness of relations is not found in case of secondary group. Virtues like love, sympathy, mutual help, एगुड़िक सब primary group रे देखा को मिले, but in case of secondary group, we generally promote self-interest and individuality. So group discussions are more traditional and non-rational in case of primary group, while in secondary group, the decisions are more rational and emphasis is on efficiency. The position of a person is fixed according to his or her birth order and age in the primary group, while it is fixed according to the roles in the secondary group. Primary groups are primary in time and importance. As such, they are the foundation stones of society, while the secondary groups are always secondary importance. Bujhila? So let us have a look on Jeminschaft and Gesellschaft. What is Jeminschaft and Gesellschaft? Somewhat similar to the concept of primary and secondary groups are the concept given by Ferdinand Tönnies, that is Gemeinschaft and Gesellschaft. These two terms translate roughly as community and society. We can say Gemeinschaft as a community and Gesellschaft as society. The Gemeinschaft is a social system in which most relationships are personal, traditional, and often both, either both patterns of relationship, personal relationship and traditional relationship in case of Gemeinschaft perspective, or we can see in a community perspective. A good example is the feudal manor, a small community held together by combination of personal relationship and status obligations. ताको मैं कहूँ Gemeinschaft. But in case of Gesellschaft, the society of tradition is replaced with the society of contract. एठी contract आसी जाउची तमाने एठी traditions ता replace करूची to the society of contract को. In this society, neither the personal attachment nor the traditional rights and duties are important. Personal attachment एठी दरकार नहीं कि traditional rights and duties रो भी आवश्यकता एठी नहीं. It is based on contract. That is societal relationship. The relationship between people are determined by bargaining and defined in written agreements. Relatives are often separated because people move about and live among strangers. आमे सबुबेले समस्तन को तो society रे जानी ना, we are always living in between the society from within the live among the strangers. Commonly accepted codes of behavior are largely replaced by rational or cold-blooded calculation of profit and loss. So thus the Gemeinschaft is the primary group relationship which are dominant, while the Gesellschaft is the secondary group relationship gained in importance. So Gemeinschaft relationship और Gesellschaft relationship रो हमें कौन find out करूँ? The Gemeinschaft relationship रे personal relationship, informal relationship, traditional relationship, sentimental relationship and general relationship हमें देखिए. किंतु Gesellschaft relationship रो we will focus here on impersonal relationship, formal relationship, contractual relationship, utilitarianism relationship, realistic relationship, as well as specialized relationship. Is it clear? So let us have a look on in-group and out-group. That in-group and out-group was given by W.G. Sumner, which referred to we relationship in contrast to the outside relationship. That means Sumner used the term in-group in his elaborated book Folkways, which was published in 1906. There are some groups which I belong. जो group रे तमे रोहुच, सेटा होची तमरा कोन? In-group, which I belong. That is my family, my religion, my university, my clique, my profession. These are my sex, my nation. That is included as your my concept. These are in group because I feel I belong to them. Mu feel करूची जे मु तांको भितर ही आसुची. So that is denoted as your in group. There are other groups to which I do not belong. In you तमे वर्तमान IGNOU रो तमे BSOC रो honors student. You are included under IGNOU university under रे तमे आसुचा. You are not included under another universities. आउ को university under रे तमे जाऊ ना हो. तामाने से तमे कौन कहूचा? Now there are other groups to which I do not belong. other families, other occupations, other races, other nationalities, other religious groups, other sects. These are out of my group. Se group ta mora बहिर्भूत मो से ग्रुप अंडर रे जाऊ नाही फॉर आई एम आउटसाइड देन तो मु तांको पई कोन आउटसाइड बा तांको सेठी मोर सिंपल टर्म रे मु कोन कहूच सेठी मु तांकर आउट ग्रुप हे गली. So the simplest societies live in small isolated bands which are usually clans of kinsfolk. It was kinship which located ones in group. जदि हमें kinship को देखिबा kinship को होची तमरो blood relationship जो relatives तमरो सेगुडा होचन तमरो in group kin group बुझ परछ and out group and when two strangers meet जेतबेले दीटा stranger देखा होचन सेटा होची कोन the first meeting they had to do was establish a relationship that is denoted as your out group. So if no relationship could be established, even then in many societies there were enemies and acted accordingly. In modern society, people belong to so many groups that their in-group and out-group relationship may overlap. So for example, in a hostel, there are various in-groups. So the hostel le bibhinna prakar in-group achi who consider others as members of out-groups. So however, in a cricket match against another hostel, all the hostel inmates will behave as in group and cheer their team on field. बुझिपारुथबो जिनसा. So in groups and out groups are important then जदि हमें देखिबा because they affect behavior from fellow members of an in group we expect recognition, loyalty and helpfulness. From out group our expectation varies with the kind of out group. From some out group we expect hostility, from others more or less friendly competition. So this is all about your in-group and out-group. Let us have a look on reference group. What is reference group? Reference group refers to any group as accepted as model or guide of our judgments and actions. आमे जेतबेले गोटे ग्रुप को as a model or guide हिसाब रे नउछु बुझि परछो. However, it needs further elaboration for clarity. In some situations we conform not to the norms to which we belong but rather to those of the groups to which we would like to be identified. ता माने हमें जो ग्रुप रे अछु हमें सेटा को माने जस्टिफाई करूना बेले बेले हमें चाहू बट रादर टू दोज ग्रुप से ग्रुप रो मेंबर होबा पई चाहू टू व्हिच वी वुड लाइक टू बी आइडेंटिफाइड. हमें जो ग्रुप रे आइडेंटिफाई होबा पई चाहू छु रेफर करिबा सजेस्ट करूछु बा ताको आइडेंटिफाई करूछु. A reference group may not be an actual group, it may even be an imaginary one. Any group is a reference group for someone if his conception of it, which may or may not be realistic, is a part of his frame of reference for assessment of himself or of his situation. Thus, an individual who is anxious to move up the social ladder usually has a tendency to conform to the norms of etiquette and speech of a higher social class than his own because he seeks identification with this class. जेमती कि हमें जदि एटी कहबा फॉर मेंबर्स ऑफ ए पर्टिकुलर ग्रुप अनदर ग्रुप इज ए रेफरेंस ग्रुप. हमें जदि गोटे मेंबर गोटे ग्रुप रो मेंबर हेताउ आउ गोटे ग्रुप को हमें तळे देखौछु दैट इज आवर रेफरेंस ग्रुप रेफर करूछु. जेमती कि व्हेन मेंबर्स ऑफ ए फर्स्ट ग्रुप एस्पायर टू मेंबरशिप ऑफ द सेकंड ग्रुप आमे जदि फर्स्ट ग्रुप रे मेंबर हे जाइछु किंतु हमर इच्छा थाए हम सेकंड ग्रुप रे मेंबर होई पारंतु कि दैट इज डिनोटेड एज आवर रेफरेंस ग्रुप. The second group becomes the reference to the next. For example, IS trainees serves the reference groups for many of the university students in India. When members of the first group strive to be like the members of the second group in some respect, the second group serves as the positive reference group to the first. The second group serves as the positive reference group. For example, the non-Brahmins in some parts of India has a tendency to emulate the ways of behavior of the Brahmins in order to acquire the prestige. Then coming to your vertical and horizontal groups. What is vertical group? Now, a vertical group was coined by Miller consists of members from all walks of life, while horizontal groups consist mainly of members from one social class. Occupational groups of doctors, electricians, engineers, etc. are examples of vertical groups. while caste groups are occupational groups of doctors, electricians, engineers, etc. are examples of the horizontal group, while caste groups are the examples of vertical groups. Then institutional and non-institutional group. Institutional groups are those which function through rituals, symbols, officers, codes of conduct, regulatory power, including power to punish. The nation is an institutional group. The state as an association of citizens of for power is an institutional group. In contrast to picnic party, which is a non-institutional group. Then coming to contractual and non-contractual group. The contractual group born with contract within the definition of power and responsibilities of the members as well as of the group. It is a formal group with a definite tendency towards institutionalization. The the farmers of the Indian Constitution, the corporation, the labor union are the example of contractual group. The non-contractual groups are students, passengers on a train, etc. Contract-based group create contractual group. Labor union gote contractual group, student group gote non-contractual group. Then coming voluntary and involuntary groups. The voluntary group is one which a person joins in his own, nijo ichhare jodi join karucha. It is his option whether he wants to remain a member or not. For example, club membership is voluntary. An involuntary group is one which is based on kinship or caste group. And it is beyond own will. Tama ichhare tama gote caste rohuna. Seta involuntary group tamara seta mane nijo ichhare tame choice kariki rahina. But kinship जो relationship रे अच्छा सेटा तमरा by birth सेटा मिली थे बुझी पड़छ. So that is voluntary or involuntary group. तापरे आछे informal and formal group. An informal group is one in which number of persons work together to attain a common goal. There is no set of formal rules and regulations to govern the relationship. It has no definite structure. Crowd is an example of informal group. Crowd जो कहेगा सेटा गोटे informal group for example. A formal group consists of a number of persons working together towards a given goal according to a set of rules under the direction of a set of officers. It has a definite structure. What a formal group रो a definite structure है. A bureaucratic group is an example of formal group. So let us have a difference in between social group and community. Social group group is an artificial creation. Community is a natural growth. Group is formed to realize some. Community includes the whole circles of social life. Membership of a group is voluntary. Membership of a community is compulsory. Group is comparatively temporary. Community is comparatively permanent. Group is a part of community. Community is a whole. Group ta gote community ro part kintu community ta hochi kona whole of the community hochi whole taku sabu janga ko seda justify karita. So my dear learners, in this unit I have explained clearly some important and basic concepts of community and social group, as well as community, how it is most inclusive groupings of humans marked by the possibility for the individual members to live with his own life within it. Community needs to be self-sufficient, and in this unit we have also examined the two bases of all communities, the occupational of a territorial area or shared position by community sentiment. And basic concepts also analyzed in this unit like social group, association, and how the social relationship involves some degree of reciprocity between the related, some nature of mutual awareness as reflected in the attitudes of the members of group. So the classification of major types of groupings is based primarily on the range and nature of interest and the degree of group organization, while other criteria enters into the distinctions between the subtypes. So this is all about your unit 9. Hope you all understand, or if you have any doubts you can ask the questions. अच्छा ये यूनिट रे कार किछि डाउट अछि जदी क्वेश्चन करो.
मैम जेन्युइन स्टार और जेसुअल स्टार थे वन से.
अच्छा जेमिन शाफ्ट और जेसुअल शाफ्ट. जेमिन शाफ्ट और जेसुअल शाफ्ट. जेमिन शाफ्ट होछि तमरो रेफर करूची कम्युनिटी, जेसेल चैप्ट रेफर करूची सोसाइटी। एठी जेमिन सब कहूची जे it was developed by Ferdinand Tonis and जेमिन सब कहूची गोटे social system in which most relationships are personal, traditional or both, either personal हेतिबो नले ट्रेडिशनल हेतिबो नले दीटा को नेकी भी रिलेशनशिप ता करा जाउची। जेमती गोटे आमे कहिबा गोटे स्मॉल कम्युनिटी हेल्थ बा लॉर्ड आमे जदि कहउछथि रिलेशनशिप ता जनरली ट्रेडिशनल बेसिस रे करूछु किबा पर्सनल बेसिस रे करूछु किबा बोथ रे कम्युनिटी रिलेशनशिप ता जनरली होउची जेमिनसेफ्ट रिलेशनशिप। बुझिला क्लियर? जदि आमे कहिबा कम्युनिटी, जेमिनसेफ्ट वर्ड translate roughly as community and Gesellschaft translated as society. Gesellschaft relationship which is societal relationship, which is mostly impersonal relationship, formal relationship, contractual relationship, and we can say a specialized relationship. Just the opposite. एक पर्सनल रिलेशनशिप थिला जेमिनसेफ्ट रे, जेहेतु सोसाइटल कांसेप्ट रे देखुछु जेसेलसेफ्ट को, एटा होची पर्सनल रिलेशनशिप, एटी इनफॉर्मल रिलेशनशिप थिला जेमिनसेफ्ट रे, सेठी फॉर्मल रिलेशनशिप अछि, एठी ट्रेडिशनल को बेस करूतला, एठी कॉन्ट्रैक्ट को बेस करूची। बुझि पाछो? एठी सेंटिमेंटल रिलेशनशिप थिला, सेठी रियलिस्टिक रिलेशनशिप को बेस करूची। जेमिनसेफ्ट रे जनरल रिलेशनशिप हमें देखुतलु, आउ जेसेलसेफ्ट रे हमें स्पेशलाइज्ड रिलेशनशिप को देखुछु। बुझि पारला?
Yes, ma'am. Ma'am, contractual group और non-contractual group answer.
कॉन्ट्रैक्चुअल तो कॉन्ट्रैक्ट बेसिस रे जो ग्रुप ता तुम क्रिएट करिवो तमरो स्पेसिफिक पर्पस फुलफिलमेंट पई जो ग्रुप क्रिएट करूचो, दैट इज कॉन्ट्रैक्ट ग्रुप। नॉन कॉन्ट्रैक्चुअल जोटा तमरो ऑटोमेटिक कहित बारे जो विदाउट कॉन्ट्रैक्ट रे जो ग्रुप ता को फॉर्मेशन करा जाउची, दैट इज नॉन कॉन्ट्रैक्चुअल ग्रुप। बुझि पाछो? कॉन्ट्रैक्ट और नॉन कॉन्ट्रैक्चुअल ले तो बेसी माने हमें कॉन्ट्रैक्ट ग्रुप एठी कहा को कहउची जो ग्रुप रे हमर किछि ग्रुप्स born with contract within a definition of power and responsibilities to the members as well as the group। एठी किछि powers और responsibilities रहिथिबो सेई ग्रुप पई, and it is generally denoted as a formal group which has a definite tendency towards institutionalization पई। जदि हमें कहबा फ्रमर्स ऑफ इंडियन कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन, इंडियन कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन रे जो फ्रमर्स माने रहिछन, द कॉर्पोरेशन हैला, लेबर यूनियन हैला, से गुडी को सब कॉन्ट्रैक्चुअल ग्रुप को। नॉन कॉन्ट्रैक्चुअल ग्रुप्स कोन? स्टूडेंट्स, पैसेंजर्स, ताकर कोन कॉन्ट्रैक्ट सफर को कॉन्ट्रैक्ट बेस काम करि थाउ, सो दे आर द स्टूडेंट्स हैला, पैसेंजर्स इन अ ट्रेन हैला, सो दीस आर द नॉन कॉन्ट्रैक्चुअल ग्रुप्स। बुझिला?
Yes, ma'am. Thank you.
So let us have a look in our next one. Next unit is having our unit of associations and institution, that is unit 10. Unit 10 denoted to associations and institutions. So generally ଆମେ already group ପଢିଲା ବେଳେ associations ର କିଛି ideas ଆମେ ପାଇଲୁ। as we know, people have different needs and desires। ସବୁ ଲୋକଙ୍କର ଏକା ପ୍ରକାର ଇଚ୍ଛା ନୁହେଁ କି desire ନୁହେଁ। Consequently, they also adopt different means। ସମସ୍ତଙ୍କର ଅଲଗା ପ୍ରକାରର ଇଚ୍ଛା ରହିଛି, ଅଲଗା ପ୍ରକାର ଆବଶ୍ୟକତା ରହିଛି, different needs ଆଉ different desires ରହିଛି। so ଏଠି ultimately means ବି different ରହିବ, ଯୋଉ ମାଧ୍ୟମ ଦେଇ ଆମେ ଆମର ଆବଶ୍ୟକତାଟାକୁ ପୂରଣ କରିବା ସେଟା ବି ଅଲଗା ପ୍ରକାର ରହିବ। so they fulfill their needs independently or having a conflict with others to protect one's own interest, but they also fulfill their needs by cooperating with each other। either ame amar need fulfill kariba pai cooperate karike fulfill karu, or we can take the medium as a conflicting basis re ame amar need fulfill kariba pai chesta karu। in fact, it is in cooperative effort and mutual assistance of an individual among themselves leads to the fulfillment of ends of the collective। when a group is expressly organized around a particular interest, an association is born। ଯେତେବେଳେ ଗୋଟେ group ଟା ଗୋଟେ organized କରା ଯାଇକି ହୁଏ of a particular interest, ଗୋଟେ ନିର୍ଦ୍ଦିଷ୍ଟ ନିହିତ ସ୍ୱାର୍ଥ ଥାଇକି କରା ଯାଇଥାଏ, ଗୋଟେ specific purpose ପାଇଁ କରା ଯାଇଥାଏ, that is they are the formation of association, or we can say association is born out of that। association is a type of social group which is an important characteristic of modern complex society। Associations were known in earlier social formation, but the nature of association as a form of social group in modern industrial society is different from the earlier one. So modern industrial societies association ta कौन earlier social formation ଠାରୁ different ଥାଏ. As society gets more complex, people's need and interest also expand. ଯେତେବେଳେ society ଅଧିକ ଜଟିଳରୁ ଜଟିଳ ଆଡକୁ ଯାଏ, so needs and interest ବି ଆମର expand କରେ, ବଢି ବଢି ଚାଲିଥାଏ. So interest or utility takes supremacy in more complex societies and begin to determine every sphere of life. Therefore, sociologically speaking, groups which are established in order to protect and enhance people's interest through certain specialized rules and regulations in an organized manner are called association. ଯେତେବେଳେ ଆମେ ଗୋଟେ specialized rules and regulations ଟା ଗୋଟେ organized manner ରେ ଜାଣିବା ପାଇଁ ଚେଷ୍ଟା କରୁ, then it is denoted as association. Institutions are set of rules that structure social interaction. Institution कौन? It is a set of rules which structure the social interaction. Social interaction को structural form रे करिबा पई we need the help of institutions. Institutions can be understood as code of conduct or a set of rules and guidelines for human activity. They structure some interaction through stated or implied rules that a set expectations. Some examples of institutions are law. Law is also institution. Educational institutions. Marriage is also included as an institution, as well as family is also included as institution. So institutions are generally a set of rules for the formation of social, structural social interaction. We need the help of institutions. So let us have a look on what are the meaning and definition of association. So first of all, an association is a group organized for the pursuit of interest or group of interest in common. And or we can say association is an organization deliberately formed for the collective pursuit of some interest or a set of interest which its members share. प्रत्येक मेंबर माने शेयर करिथांती जहां भी इंटरेस्ट रहिता जहां भी collective pursuit है shared by each and every members of that particular association. Then coming to the characteristics of an association, association is denoted as a human group. Association the first characteristics होची association is a human group. We can't say association, we can't format an association without humans. By the term group here means collection of social beings who share distinctive social relationship with one another. As group which refers to reciprocity between its members. Therefore, here association as a group expressly organized around a particular interest. The idea of expressly organized differentiates associations as social group from other social groups like primary and secondary groups or class and crowd. Class and crowd. So एठी हमें देखुछु association is generally a human group. Now what is second आसुची association have common interest. It is also a characteristics of association. It is not association is not just a collection of individuals, but association as a distinct social group in terms of interest aspect of association. Association टा खाली गोटे लोक माने दळे लोक माने हे गले गोटे association हबनी. We need some common interest. प्रत्येकंकर एका प्रकारर interest रहिथिबा दरकार. Because the association is organized for particular purposes. Association टा गोटे निर्दिष्ट लक्ष्य हासिल करिबा पई करा जाय थाय. For the pursuit of specific interest, we belong to it by virtue of this interest. Thus, interests are foundational virtue around which different forms of association are formed. So, an association is known essentially as an organized group. The character of association gives stability and proper shape to an association. The idea of association as an organization also determines the way in which the status and role are distributed among its members. तामने association रा हमें आउ गोटे characteristics कोन नेलु ना it is an organization. Next one characteristics is regulation of relations. Every association has its own ways and means to regulate the behavior and relations of its members. Therefore, they frame certain rules and regulations which may be in written form or in unwritten form. Regulation of relations either written form रे हेइथाउ कि unwritten form रे करा जाइथाइ पारे. तापर आछि cooperative spirit. One of the characteristics of association is its cooperative spirit. For the pursuit of fulfillment of its interest, this cooperative spirit may be spontaneous, as offering by helping hand to a stranger, or it may be casual, or in fact may be determined or guided by the customs of a community, as in case of farmers assisting their neighbors at harvest time. But indeed, association is guided by common interest of group members. So we need a cooperative spirit in between the association. Next one is membership is voluntary. Membership in an association is generally voluntary. It depends on individuals' choice as per their interest. In fact, individuals are at liberty to join them. One can join athletic club for purposes of physical recreation or sport, to a business for livelihood or profits, to a social club for fellowship. Therefore, membership in an association has social limited significance. So, membership is generally voluntary. काहाको फोर्स करके गोटे एसोसिएशन नो मेंबर करा जाए नाही. मेंबरशिप ता स्वेच्छा रे जणे गोटे एसोसिएशन नो मेंबर हबो कि नाही, that depends upon the individual's choice. तापरे आसुची associations as agencies. Associations are means or agencies through which their members realize their similar or shared interest. Such social organizations necessarily act not merely through leaders but through officials or representatives as agencies. In a way, associations normally act through agents who are responsible for or and to the association. So it also give a distinctive character association as a legal entity. तामाने गोटे members बा गोटे agent थाए जे कि सबु जानक जिंस को manage करे and who are responsible for the association, and it also give a distinctive character to the association as a legal entity. Next one is association has corporate character. Corporate character कहले हमें कौन बुझुचु ना, association by virtue of being a social organization may own property or funds which are held collectively and do not belong to individual members. It possesses rights and obligations, powers and liabilities which the members cannot exercise as individuals. It is in this sense, corresponding to its peculiar method of functioning, that association has a corporate character. Next one is durability of association. The nature of association may be permanent or temporary. There are some more enduring and exist on a larger scale, like the state, family, religious organizations, etc. However, some associations very temporary in nature. Durability हमें कहले associations टा either permanent है पारे किंबा temporary है पारे. Durability टा होची either association टा गोटे दीर्घस्थायी गोटे association बहुत दिन पर्यंत रहे, आउट associations में भी temporary form रे भी है पारे. So these are the certain characteristics of association. Let us have a look on relationship in between association and community. What is association and community? It is clear from the above description that an association is deliberately formed. गोटे उद्यम रहित ही करा जाय थाए for the purpose of fulfillment of certain common needs of a people. किछि निर्दिष्ट आवश्यकता पूर्ण करिबा पई association तयारी करा जाय थाए. But a community is more than any specific organization. किंतु community टा गोटे specific organization किछि अधिक. In fact, organization develops within a community. For example, the business or the church or the club with village or city or nation, these are the organizations developed within the community. Thus, we can call a city or a village a community, but not a church. But a city or village को not a community कहूँगा, किंतु ଗୋଟେ church को नहीं. कहीं ना ଗୋଟେ city और village under रे church टा रही पारिबो, किंतु ଗୋଟେ church under रे village और community टा को sorry city टा को हमें मेंशन करि परिबा नाही. So these organizations exist in terms for the fulfillment of particular interest around which they are organizations. Therefore, there can be multiple of associations within a community. On contrast, community is a natural development and is guided by more general principles than the specific interest. In fact, community is more free and wider than even many bigger associations. Moreover, the membership of a community is concerned more open, but the membership in association has limited significance. So as a result, community is relatively larger and more stable than associations. तापर देखिबा associations and institutions कौन. Though it seems similar, however, sociologically speaking, both the concepts differ in terms of their meaning. जदियो association और institution एका प्रकार लागुची किंतु दीटा जंक अलगा in their meaning, nature and in many other ways. However, it needs to be clarified that we belong to the associations but not to the institutions. In a way, institutions are defined as established forms or conditions of procedure characteristic of group activity. While forming association, which is a deliberate formation surrounding certain common interest, also create rules and procedures to deliver the objective. Thus, every association has, with respect to its particular interest, its characteristic institutions. The church, for example, has its sacraments, its mode of worship, and its rituals. The family has marriage, that is the institution of mating relationship. It has the home, the family, and so forth. The state has its own peculiar institutions such as representatives of government and legislative procedures. However, we belong to associations but not institutions. I mean, association bhitere belong karuchu kintu not the institutions. It broadly refers to the idea that when we consider something as an organized group, it is an association. ଯେତେବେଳେ ଆମେ କିଛି organized group କଥା କହୁଛୁ, it is considered as a association. But when we consider as a form of procedure, କିଛି rules, regulation, procedure କଥା ଯେତେବେଳେ କହୁଛୁ, it refers to as an institution. So association denotes membership, institution denotes some modes or means of service. How, when we view a college as a body of teachers and students, we are selecting its associational aspect. But when we regard it as an educational system, we are selecting it as institutional features. बुझिपारछ जेतेबेले हमें गोटे कॉलेज को when we view a college as a body of teachers and students, then we are selecting it as an associational aspect. किंतु when we regard it as an educational system हिसाब रे जेतेबेले देखुछु, we are selecting it as a institutional features. So therefore we cannot belong to an institution, we do not belong to marriage, ଆମେ marriage ଭିତରେ belong करूनु, or property system or solitary confinement, but we do belong in families. किंतु हमें कहाँ अंडर रे रहूछु, families अंडर रे रहूछु. So let us have some definitions regarding institutions. Institutions are components of the society that help to maintain order and stability through structuring human interaction and activity. Institutions manifest themselves in terms of overt or implicit rules that structure human interaction. They function through the members of a society being socialized into them. This makes the study of institutions critical to the field of sociology. Emil Durkheim referred to sociology as the scientific study of principal institutions. Institutions such as religion, family, education, etc. are still critical to the discipline of sociology. Let us consider a few scholarly definitions regarding institutions. According to MacIver, institutions as established forms or conditions of procedures, characteristics of group activity. According to Sumner, institution consists of concepts, ideas, notions, doctrine, or interest and a structure. These are certain definitions given by different scholars. We can also one more definitions according to Ginsburg. Institutions are definite and sanctioned
forms or modes of relationship between social beings in respect to one another or to some external object. So, from the above definitions, we learn that institutions may not be physical entities but visible in the coordinated patterns of behavior. किंतु हमें coordinated patterns of behavior रे institution देखुचु. Second होची institutions can help explain the behavior of individual members, or we can say institutions have both restrictive and enabling potential in the both constraints the choices available to an individual and define the ways in which the choices to be exercised, or we can say institutions function to force and retreat solidarity among the members of a society, and also institutions structures the interaction between the members. So institutions can be defined in terms of the regular and consistent patterns of behavior that are structured through the norms and sanctions. While manifest behaviors may be read as observable form of institution, institutions cannot be reduced merely to associated behavior, for if associated behavior were to get disrupted, and that may not be necessarily mean the institution has ceased to exist. So, or we can, if we consider origin of the term institution, the term became popular through its uses in economics, where it signified constraints on human endeavor of utility maximization due to the parallel efforts towards utility maximization by other members. The two economists who are associated with it are Williamson and DC North. As you may notice that its uses in economics is quite different from the uses in sociology. While the uses of the term in economics is of little significance to sociology, the sociological conception of institutions, institutional change, and institutionalization have been significant to the discipline of economics. To economics, institution in the sociological sense can help predict and explain individual behavior. Unlike its original uses in economics, one can start at the understanding of institution and comprehend individual behavior, which is what the sociological concept of institution suggests. After its initial uses in economics, the term then spread into sociology. The first sociological credited with the uses of the term Herbert Spencer. Spencer suggested that society is an organism and institutions are all the organs of society. ଯେମିତି ମଣିଷର human being ର organs ଅଛି, in the similar way institutions are defined as the organs of society according to Herbert Spencer. So what are the purpose of institution जदि हमें देखिबा that human beings seek to supplement their institutional world with a cultural world. He suggests that the feeling of incompleteness and attempt to supplement explains the emergence of institution. Institutions therefore make human life meaningful through connecting human beings to their natural environment. Let us have a types of institutions. What economic institutions? These are the institutions that correspond to production, consumption, and distribution of goods and services. Second, institutions of social stratification. These are the which regulate and control differential access to social status and prestige. I would kinship, marriage, and family. These are the institutions control and regulate reproduction. I would political institutions. They are concerned with regulation and distribution of power. Next one is cultural institutions. They regulate religious, symbolic, and cultural practices. So let us have a look on perspectives on social institutions. Social institutions are systematic beliefs and norms that are centered on the fulfillment of basic needs. There are different perspectives. First perspective is a functionalist perspective. Functionalist perspective highlights the role and services that institutions play with regard to the larger society. The functionalist perspective looks at institution as part of the whole of that is society. The value of an institution is understood solely in relation to the service it prays to the overall well-being of the society. So functionalist perspective suggests that social institutions fulfills the needs of the society through 5 ways. 5 प्रकार social institution needs fulfill करे. प्रथम होची replacement of personnel that society loses as a result of death caused by aging, disease, war or migration. Second है socialization and education of new members, ताकू भी करी था institution. Third one, production, circulation and distribution of goods and services among the members of society. Fourth one, providing an order to day-to-day interaction and governance, while day-to-day governance. Fifth one is promoting sense of belongingness and purpose by allowing people to form and reassert allegiance to associations such as religion, culture, language, etc. Another perspective is conflict perspective. Conflict perspective it agrees with functionalist perspective insofar as to admit that institutions fulfill basic needs of the society. Conflict perspective argues that institutions work to establish hierarchies and perpetuate status quo. So conflict perspective has traced how major institutions such as education has worked to privilege the powerful groups within the society. So conflict perspective further stresses the institution's work towards maintenance of privilege. So it highlights the institutions are both exclusionary and oppressive to those that of institutions disadvantages. Interactionist perspective unlike the former two, it is interested in the microscopic or we can say microcosmic view of how institutions play out in actual interaction. It seeks to capture patterns of how institutions frame and feature in interactions and everyday behaviors. Interactionist perspective argues that institutions frame our daily interactions and behavior. Our day-to-day interactions and behaviors are conditioned by the role and statuses we are accorded. So, for instance, the role of a teacher within the institution of education frames the interaction in specific ways. It can only make sense in relation to the roles of students, parents, and other stakeholders. So, the institution of education derives its significance from the various roles and statuses that people agree to play and carry out in consistent manner in their day-to-day interactions. So this is all about the formation of association, institution, or the different perspectives of institutions, how moreover association, how it is a social group, and how associations and institutions are working together. So these working of institutions, we therefore different types of institutions that act as a social unit to promote solidarity and cohesion within the society. So this is all about your unit 10, consists of associations and institutions. So my dear learners, if you have any doubts, you can ask the questions regarding this unit.
Ma'am, cooperative characters once.
Kahara?
Cooperative characters.
Cooperative characteristics means?
Association. Association.
Cooperative spirit. Association characteristics, cooperative spirit. এটা তো আচ্ছা cooperative spirits means without cooperation can a association be formed? Can be possible. Cooperative spirit କହୁଛି it is spontaneous. Spontaneously ଆମେ ଗୋଟେ cooperative spirit ଦେଖାଉ to fulfill the specific interest of an association. It may be casual or in fact may be determined or guided by the customs of a community, or in case of farmers assisting their neighbors. ଯେମିତି କି ଗୋଟେ farmer assist करे ତାର neighbors ମାନଙ୍କୁ during the harvest time, but indeed association is guided by common interest of group members. ଯେତେବେଳେ common ପ୍ରତ୍ୟେକ member ମାନଙ୍କର interest କୁ ଏଠି ଆଖି ଆଗରେ ରଖାଯାଏ, so there is found a cooperative spirit. Cooperative spirit is highly essential in association. Association କରିବା ପାଇଁ ହେଲେ we need the cooperative spirit for the fulfillment of certain interest. ବୁଝିଲା?
Ma'am, once again, association and institute difference between.
Difference. Association तमरो कहूची it is denoted as a organization which is deliberately formed for the collective pursuit of some interest or a set of interest. गोटे interest fulfill करिवा पई बा set of interest fulfill करिवा पई हम जेतरा association को करूछु, that is denoted as your association. Institution कौन कहूची ना, it is a established forms or conditions of procedures, rules and regulations, procedures, characteristics of group activity. जेतबेला हमें group activity करिवा पई certain rules और regulations, procedures made up करूछु, ताको हमें कहूची established forms of rules and regulations, that is denoted as institution. Institution consists of a concept, गोटे किसी concept थिबो, जेंति educational institution गोटे concept, गोटे idea, जेंति religious institution अलगा type रो concept, अलगा type रो idea. So it consists of concept, idea, notion or doctrine of interest and structure. एठी गोटे प्रकार नोशन को नहीं कि करा जाए, गोटे आइडियाज को नहीं कि करा जाए, गोटे डॉक्ट्रिन ऑफ इंटरेस्ट को नहीं कि करा जाए. सो दिस इज कॉल्ड योर इंस्टीट्यूशन. एसोसिएशन होची डेलिबरेटली फॉर्म फॉर ए स्पेसिफिक पर्पस, गोटे निर्दिष्ट पर्पस, गोटे निर्दिष्ट इंटरेस्ट फुलफिल करबा पई एसोसिएशंस करा जाउची. एठी इंस्टीट्यूशन को होची इट कंसिस्ट्स ऑफ कांसेप्ट, आइडिया, नोशन, डॉक्ट्रिन और इंटरेस्ट और एंड ए स्ट्रक्चर. गोटे वेल एस्टैब्लिश्ड फॉर्म्स एंड कंडीशंस एथरे रहितबा, दैट इज डिनोटेड एज इंस्टीट्यूशन. बुझेला?
Thank you.
So right now I am wind up this session.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Thank you all.
Thank you, ma'am.